The billboard is a large outdoor advertisement designed to capture attention from a distance, typically placed in high traffic areas. As part of a brand campaign to promote an exhibition event, a billboard is crucial because it offers massive visibility and can reach a wide audience quickly. A billboard's size and prominent placement make it ideal for delivering bold, impactful messages that leave a lasting impression. A well-designed billboard reinforces a brand, builds excitement for the event, and drives awareness, helping to attract more attendees. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to design a professional billboard from scratch using the tools in InDesign. We'll cover setting up your document, adding text, images, and even some design flair. So here I am in InDesign, and here is a billboard document we are going to develop in this video. This is part of a series of branded marketing material we will be creating on this course for a fictional design exhibition event. To create this billboard in InDesign, we're going to cover the following key steps. This is a methodical process that will ensure we create quality design in InDesign and not leave anything unchecked. So be sure to check the bookmarks in this video so you can jump back or ahead at any time. After this video, you'll be able to create a professional billboard in Adobe InDesign super easy. So let's get into it. So the billboard is one of the largest formats you will create in InDesign. When we think of billboards, there are a variety of different sizes and dimensions you can create. Depending on which advertisement agency you're working with and the position of where it might be placed, you could create a tall billboard, a rectangle billboard, a wide billboard, or a ultra-wide billboard. Typically, when designing a billboard, you will first need to talk with the client or agency to get the right dimensions. Now, when working with ultra-large formats in InDesign, keep in mind you don't have to create the canvas area to the exact size. If we did that, then we would end up with a huge file that could seriously slow down our computer. So what we can do is make a suitable document size to scale, make sure our images are of high quality, and when we export a PDF file with vector text and good quality images, a printer will blow up the exported file and print to the full dimension. A common rule that is applied is to supply artwork at 10% of the full size at 300 dpi. For example, if we had a billboard that was 6 meters by 3 meters, instead of creating an InDesign document 600 centimeters wide and 300 centimeters tall, which would be huge, we can create a document 10% of that, which would be 60 centimeters by 30 centimeters. Alternatively, if we take a 24 foot by 12 foot billboard, in InDesign we could set 1 inch per foot, where we could create a 24 inch by 12 inch document. Working with text is not a problem, as you know this is going to be vector when exported, so will be sharp no matter what the size. However, you will need to be careful with your images. You will need to pay close attention to using good quality images that when exported as raster when blown up, the quality will be suitable. Typically, I'll work with my images between 150 to 300 dpi, which will ensure good quality. But remember, if you're doing a proper print job, it's advised to talk with your printer so you can prepare your images to the correct resolutions. So for this example, we're working with a common billboard dimension. As I scroll down, you can see in this document I have multiple billboard designs. Currently, these are stacked on top of each other as individual pages. If we look in the Pages panel, we can see the contents of this document and how many pages are contained. When creating a billboard, it's common to work like this, where you may focus on a few billboard designs in one document. For this project, we're creating a billboard for a fictional design expo. When designing for an exhibition event, it's likely there will be lots of messaging and highlights to promote. So an event such as this would develop multiple different billboards with different messages. For the look and feel, we're going to take reference from the brand media kit that is included as part of this course. We will be including some of the brand motif and color elements as part of the design. We'll also be using some of the design elements we have already developed previously in this course. If you want to take a look at this document and get all the assets and follow along, you can get access to this document from the course download folder. This download folder comes with multiple projects and a ton of assets and resources we'll be using in this course. You can find the link to acquire the folder from the description. With the download folder open, click into folder 4 project, into the Design Expo folder, click into folder 2, Event Publication Design, and open the Event Design InDesign file. This is a document that contains all the publication designs we will be creating for this course. If we scroll down to the marketing collateral page, we can see a variety of documents. For this video, we are going to look at the Billboard document. So with the selection tool, I'll click the Billboard thumbnail. Now I'll either come to the links panel and click Edit Original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail, and the document will open in its own tab. Now for this document, I'm using the font Base New. If you've not already downloaded all the fonts for this course, this is a free font that you can acquire online. To get this font, I would recommend you check out the course fonts page on the course PDF document. This is a list of all the fonts that are used in this course and where to get them. Simply click on the Base New link, and this will take you straight to where you can download it. Simply close this document, install the fonts, open it back up again, and you should be able to follow along just fine. So on the first page, we have a fairly straightforward layout, where it's mainly visual to give a good first impression. Here we have a strong header and a visual element to capture the attention. Towards the bottom, we have a logo, some additional text about the event, and a footer row. If I press W to toggle between preview and normal mode, in normal mode we can see that there's quite a few things going on here behind the scenes. To help structure and align my elements, I have used a baseline grid and a 6-column grid, which fits inside the margin grid around the inside. If we look over in the layers panel, we can see 3 layers, one for type, one for images, and one for base grid. These billboards include a lot of visual elements, so the layers have been set up in this way to make it easy to organize and manage them. And if we look over in the character and paragraph styles panel, we have some styles here formatting our text, and we also have some styles in the object styles panel. So let's see how we can create a document like this. To begin, I'm going to come up to File, New, and create a new document. For the billboard, the actual size is 6 meters by 3 meters. So here we'll generate a custom size. Now what we're going to do here is create a document that's 10% of that. Remember, when it comes to creating an ultra large format, we don't have to set up the canvas size to the exact amount. So I'll change the units to centimeters. For the width, I'll set this to 60. For the height, I'll set this to 30. I'll make sure the orientation is set to landscape. Now I don't want facing pages, so I'll make sure this is unchecked. I'm going to set the pages to 1. For the margin space, I'll click to unlock the parameters across them all. I'll set the top to 1.5 centimeters, the bottom to 1.5 centimeters, left to 3 centimeters, and right to 3 centimeters. I'll click down on my bleed and slug and set this to 0, click create, and my new document will open. So now if I press W on the keyboard to toggle between preview and normal mode, we can see our margin space around the inside of the canvas. Looking back at my final billboard, if I press W, I can toggle between normal and preview mode, and in normal mode, we can see the grid that I have used to structure the billboard content. For this approach, I have gone for a 6-column grid to align things horizontally, and I've also used a baseline grid which will allow me to align things vertically. So now I'm going to come into my InDesign preferences, click on units and increments, and I'll set this to millimeters for horizontal and vertical. If you're following along, I suggest you do the same so you can match what we are going to do next. Back to my new document, I'm going to come over to the Pages panel and double click on the parent page. First, I'm going to set up the columns. To do this, I'll come up to Layout, then down and click on Margins and Columns. I'll set the columns to 6 and the gutter to 15. I'll click OK. Next, to set up the baseline grid. To do this, I'll come up to Layout, scroll down and click Create Guides. In the menu, I'll make sure to click to turn on Preview. For rows, I'll set the number to 40, and for the gutter, I'll set this to 0. I'll make sure to hit the check mark for Fit Gutters to Margins. I'll click OK, and if I double click on a page in the Pages panel, the grid will be applied to the page. Perfect. So once I have my document set up, I can now start thinking about working with visual elements. Now, depending on the nature of a design, this can influence whether you start working with type or image. Looking back at my final design, if I toggle off the visibility of the type and images layer, we can see that the overall design is structured in what appears to be a stroke base grid, which is used to compartmentalize all the elements. We also have a large visual image on the right-hand side. So for this approach, I'm going to start with the base grid structure and then work my way upwards. So to kick off any document, I'll always start with my layer structure. I'll come into the layers panel, double click on the current layer, and since I'm starting with my base layer, I'll call this a base stroke grid. Now looking back at my final design, we can see that there's quite a distinct style for this. The grid comes in from the top and finishes at the bottom with space around. Back in my document, I'll grab the rectangle tool. I'm just going to start outside of my canvas at the top, and I'm going to make sure that I click roughly in the middle of this margin space on the left. I'll click and drag down to my bottom margin, and then across again to the middle of the margin space on the right. Upon release, I now have a simple box frame carefully positioned on my page. I'll just come over to the Tools panel. I'll make sure the stroke is selected, and for now I'll just come and set this to black with a stroke size of 1. And if I press W on the keyboard to toggle between normal and preview mode, we can see my stroke outline there. Now for this grid, I also want a horizontal line. So I'll come over and grab the stroke tool from the menu, and I'll just start by clicking and dragging across while holding shift to draw a straight line from one side of my box to the other. Again, I'll make sure the stroke is set to black with a size of 1. With the selection tool, I'll drag the stroke while holding shift down and place it at the top of the third row from the bottom. Now I'm also going to need another one, so with the selection tool, I'll just drag it up while holding Alt plus Shift to make a quick duplicate. I'll just place this roughly in the middle, click on the right and drag in about halfway, place my mouse cursor in the bottom right. When I see the rotate mouse cursor, I'll click and drag while holding shift to snap to 90 degrees, and I'll place it in the middle like so. One more time, with the selection tool, I'll just drag the bottom one up again while holding Alt plus Shift to make a quick duplicate. I'll place this roughly in the middle, click on the right and drag it halfway to meet my center line, and I'll just place this around 2/3 of the way down for now. So this lays down the base grid and the foundational structure that I'm going to build on top. So now we've defined some properties for these stroke objects, I'm going to make a quick object style. So first I'll select one of the strokes, then I'll jump into my object style panel, click on the top right menu, click new style, and I'll name this base stroke, click to apply style to selection and click OK. Then I'll select all the other strokes and apply the base stroke object style. So if at any time after creating these strokes I want to change the size or color, all I have to do is simply change this one object style and it will change them all automatically. Easy. Next, I'm going to bring in some of the image elements. So looking back at the final design, we can see that for the first billboard, the main visual element will include this collage composition and some bold text next to it. Now this collage motif is part of the event brand style. In a previous video, we looked at how to create collage compositions like this. So next I'm going to come into the brand toolkit. With the download folder open, click into folder 4 project, into the Design Expo folder, click into folder 1 Media Kit and open the Design Expo Brand Kit InDesign file. This is a brand kit document that includes all the style references we are going to include in our publication design. If we scroll down to the brand artwork style page, we can see we have links to collage samples. With the selection tool, I'll select the collage thumbnail. Now I'll either come to the links panel and click edit original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail and the document will open up in its own tab. So here we have a series of collage samples we worked on in a previous episode. If you have not watched that episode and you are curious to learn how to create digital collages like this, you can jump back to the previous video. Or if not, you can just open this document from the download folder where you can follow along. For the first billboard, I'm going to use the collage sample on the last page. Over in the layers panel, I've organized this document into separate layers to make it easy to work with. So in the layers panel, I'll make sure all layers are unlocked. With the selection tool, I'll click and drag over all the elements, copy these, come into my billboard document. I'll come over to the layers panel, click to add a new layer, I'll call this images, and make sure it's at the top. Lock the base grid layer and paste the collage onto the new layer. For now, I'll just click and drag them over to the right and place them in the module space. I'm not going to worry too much about the composition of this right now. Right now, I just want this in my document ready to work with later. Now you may notice that upon pasting the image into the document, the colors may look a bit desaturated. To resolve this, you can come up to Edit, down to Transparency Blend, and set this to RGB. Next, I'm going to place in the logo, and to make this easy, I'll jump into the Brand Toolkit. So back into the Brand Toolkit. On the Brand Toolkit at a glance page, we can see a sample of the logo. So I'll click to select this, copy, and back into the document, I'll paste the logo into the document. I'll come up to the top left in the control panel and set the reference point to the top left. I'll drag the logo down and across to set on the edge of the margin. I'll press S to activate the scale tool, place my mouse cursor in the bottom right and click and drag while holding shift and place inside one column like so. Nice. Now looking back at my final billboard design, there is also a stroke line that appears above the paragraph text on the right. If I toggle on normal mode, you can see that this is positioned nicely within the column. So to make this easy, I'll jump back into my brand toolkit. I'll select one of the stroke samples from the stroke sample page, copy and paste it into my billboard, scale up to fit across one column. But now we have a slight problem. If we look closely at the gutter space behind, we can see that the space on the left is more than the space on the right by this middle stroke. If we want to align everything perfectly within this module, we're going to have to address the column grids in the background. To do this is easy. If we double click back onto the parent page, come up to layout and hit margins and columns, here I'm going to make an adjustment to the right margin. Here I'm going to type in 45. Now this is a little bit unconventional, but for this unique instance, this is going to work perfectly. I'll click OK, click back on the page in our Pages panel, and we will now see that the margin space within this module is perfect. Now this isn't a common practice in InDesign, but keep in mind that sometimes when you're creating bespoke compositions like this, where we have a stroke grid in the background, sometimes you might have to tinker and tweak your guides and column values to get the result you want. So I'll come and resize the logo and the stroke to fit within the new column widths, and that will complete all the image elements. So with all the visual elements, now in the billboard, we can move on to working with type. To begin, I'll start with the largest piece of text to the left. So looking at the final design, we can see that for the header, we have a certain style. Now we could create this from scratch, or we could recycle from a previous document. In the previous video, we set up a flyer design. In that episode, we learned how to format the text to create this exact header effect and apply character and paragraph styles. One of the awesome things about setting up character and paragraph styles is that these can be copied and pasted from one document to another. So instead of formatting this from scratch, I'm going to grab a sample we prepared earlier. So I'll come back to the event design document we opened earlier. On the marketing collateral page, with the selection tool, I'll select the flyer thumbnail. Now I'll either come to the links panel and click edit original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail and the document will open in its own tab. I'll come and select the header type in the top left. I'll copy this, jump back into my billboard document. First, I'll come over into the layers panel and add a new layer and call this type. And I'll make sure this layer is set on top. I'll paste and then place it over on the left hand side. Now upon pasting, this will appear small because we're just pasting from a smaller document. Also, upon pasting this piece of text in our document, we will also see in the paragraph styles a folder with paragraph styles inside. So now to resize the text for the billboard. So with the selection tool, I'll grab the bottom right anchor point of the text box and drag it out to fill the module space. I'll make sure nothing is selected, come into the paragraph styles panel and double click on the header style in the header and titles folder. I'll come to the basic Cara formatting settings. I'll set the size to 68 and the leading to 75, click OK, and the text will resize. Now if the frame is too small, I might have to click again on the bottom right and drag out until I can see the text fit in the frame. Keep in mind that all of this text is assigned to this one paragraph style here, and the second line is defined by this character style. With the second line selected, if I click none in the character panel, we will see the formatting remove, and if I click back on it, it will return. All this character style is doing is applying the stroke and all caps effect. The size and leading is defined by the paragraph style. But now I will have to tweak the size of that stroke because it looks a little small. So with the bottom line selected, I'll come into the stroke panel, set the size to 1, then come into my character styles panel, right click on the style and click redefine style, then double click on the bottom middle anchor point to snap the frame to fit the text. Easy. So just like that, I was able to bring in some formatted text and quickly change it to suit a new document. And I did that really quickly. So that saved us a lot of time. Now in this instance, I'm thinking the leading between the second line might be a bit much. So I'll come and select the second line of my header, press and hold Alt on the keyboard and press up a few times, and that will tweak my leading and balance the text nicely. So I'll press W to toggle between normal and preview mode. In normal mode, I'll drag my type to the top left against the margin and neatly place it just under the second row from the top. Easy. So once we have our formatted text in the document, now it's just a simple case of replacing the text. Next, I'll come into the Design Expo content deck. This is a content deck that has been created to help you follow along with all the tutorials in the course to get hold of all the text. If you want to get hold of this content deck, click the link in the description or click the link in the course PDF. So I'll come to the page for Billboard 1. I'll select the first line in the header copy, into my billboard design, select the top line and paste, back into the deck, select the second line, copy and replace. So with the headline text in place, that now defines the space in which this is going to take up on the left side. I'll come to the layers panel and unlock the base layer, click the stroke line below and place it under allowing for adequate space. I'll align it to one of the baselines, and now we are starting to define our composition more decisively. Excellent. Now you may be wondering, why didn't you show me how to format that text? After all, this is a video tutorial, right? Well, the point of this was to show you that InDesign can be very flexible when working with type. Yes, we can format type from scratch, but this can be quite bitty, and it can often take some time to do so. Once you've set up some text and applied paragraph styles, it can then be very easy and time-saving to recycle formatted text. The example here is to show you how easy this can be. As you create multiple documents, even if it's a document with a completely different style, you can copy and paste style text from one document to another as a base, and simply change the properties. In the previous video, I went into depth on how to format this text. So instead of going through all that again, I simply recycled it here. If you've not seen that video and you're interested, simply jump back to that video and you can learn more. So looking back at the final design, we can see that the next piece of text is one that sits next to the logo. Again, we could set this up from scratch or recycle from another document. So just like before, I'll jump back into my flyer document. This time I'll select the header on the second page, copy and paste into my document, and we'll also copy in the paragraph style that goes with it. Super fast, right? So I'll drag it down into the second column, and with the selection tool, adjust the text frame to the column width, and I'll come into the content deck, select the paragraph text, back into InDesign, select the text and paste to replace. So in normal mode, I'll drag my text frame and place it on my second column just under the fourth row from the top underneath the middle stroke here. Next, I can grab the logo and drag this up to align to the top as well. Likewise for the stroke on the right. And now we have our three items aligned nicely in that module. If I feel the text ragging is not balanced in the text frame, I'll select the new text frame, come into the paragraph panel and add a 5mm indent to the right. And that should sort out the text ragging inside. Easy. So next, I want some paragraph text in the third column to sit underneath the stroke. Here's another technique to do this real quick. So I'll drag my subtitle across while holding Alt to make a quick duplicate. I'll double click into the frame and select all the type. Up in the control panel, I'll set the font to 12. I'll set the leading to 17. I'll hit the drop down for the font family and change this to medium. I'll set the right indent down in the paragraph panel back to 0. I'll come into the paragraph style panel, click on the top right menu, click new style, and I'll name this paragraph. I'll be careful here to look below at the general setting. It may say based on a different style here. I'll make sure to set this to none. Click the box to apply style to selection, click OK. I'll come into the content deck, copy the paragraph, back into InDesign, I'll replace the text, press escape to deselect, and double click on the bottom middle anchor point, and that will snap the frame to the text inside. Perfect. Now looking back at the final design, we can see at the bottom we have some text going across the bottom of the billboard. Again, we could set this up from scratch, but you guessed it, we're going to recycle. I'll jump back into my flyer document, copy the footer text, copy and paste into my document. I'll place it in the bottom left in the bottom module space and then click and drag the text frame to fill the space. I'll place my mouse cursor after the word London and press delete to remove that paragraph break, and this will put it back onto one line. I'll add a hyphen and press spacebar. Set the font to 18. I'll select the text book now, type in tickets available now. I'll come into the paragraph styles panel, right click on the paragraph footer style and select redefine style, and that's looking okay. However, now it's looking too tight on the left and right. I'll click on the text box, right click and select text frame options. Right now the left and right are set to 4. I'll just push this up to 10 for left and right. Click OK. I'll click into the text, select the hyphen between 2025 and London, change this to a /, and that's looking nice in that space there. So the last piece of text I'm going to get in here is the little label that sits up on the top right next to the header. Looking back at the final design, we can see that this has an interesting highlight effect applied. I'll jump back into my flyer document, select the label, copy and paste it into my document, and we'll also paste in the paragraph style that goes with it. With the text frame selected, up in the control panel, in the top left, I'll make sure that the reference point is set to top left. I'll press S on the keyboard to activate the scale tool, click and drag while holding shift to scale it up so the text goes across 2 rows of the baseline grid below. Then I'll place it on the margin on the right and align it to the header on the left. And I'll come into the paragraph style, right click on the label style and select redefine style. Nice. So now we're starting to get somewhere with this billboard design. At this point, when all the text is in the document, I then like to start thinking about color. Looking back at my final design, you can see the color approach I took. So if we look at the swatches panel, we can see that we have all our brand colors present, and most of the colors are already applied to the text. When we pasted the collage elements and the text from the previous documents earlier, it also carried across the swatches. In the swatches panel, we can now see all the colors that we can use, but we will need to be careful. Here we can also see some duplicates, which can happen when you paste in elements with the same color multiple times. Here I'll come and select on a duplicate, right click, select delete, and replace it with an existing color. And I'll do this for as many colors are duplicates. Once I have all my brand colors together, I can click on the top one, press and hold shift, select the bottom, click the folder icon to set these into their own folder group, and I'll name the folder Design Expo Palette. Now one detail I need to address, and this is the strokes. Right now they are set to black. So I'll come into the Object Styles panel, double click on the base stroke style, and I'll change the stroke color to Ultravio. Nice. Now looking back at the final design, we can see that for part of the design, we have a solid block of color at the bottom. First, I'll toggle off the visibility of the text layer. On the base layer, I'll grab the frame tool and drag a frame to the size of the module at the bottom, and I'll set the fill color to Solaro. Right click, down to Arrange and Center Back, and toggle the visibility back for the type and images layer. So now everything is in the document, all the text is defined, everything is as it should be. What I can do now is just take a couple of minutes to fine tune the visual artwork on the right. Here I'll change the size and scale to fit this graphic image in the module better. I'll click into all the elements and change the size and scale until I have something like this. So there is one last element I want to bring into this billboard design, and that is a QR code. And I'm going to place this in a colored box as part of the collage. Again, I can grab this from the brand toolkit. I'll select it from the visual element page, paste it on the right, create a colored box, place it on top, and scale and position like so. And that completes the layout of an initial billboard. Perfect. So once you're happy with one layout, it's very easy to duplicate. So I'll come into the Pages panel, click on the page, right click and duplicate the spread. Looking back at the final designs, we can see that the second version includes a different header and collage image. So in this instance, I'll unlock the image layer, I'll delete the collage, I'll open the collage document, copy and paste in another composition and position and scale. I'll come into the content deck for Billboard version 2, copy all the text and replace all the text in the second spread. In this instance, I might have to come and tweak some of the text to redefine the text dragging. Here I can add line breaks when necessary. And just like that, we now have two versions of the billboard. Using this process, we could make as many versions as we like. Perfect. So before we close off this tutorial, there is one last thing that is quite important to keep in mind, and that is style management. In this video, we only created one style, and the rest were pasted in from other documents. If we look in the paragraph styles panel, we can see that we already have a folder structure in here for the header and titles, paragraphs and label, which was established in the previous document. So again, another awesome reason why you should organize your styles in folders. Now the style I created earlier was for the paragraph, so I'll drag that into the paragraph folder, and here we're creating a clear and organized hierarchy of our styles. Nice. So once you're happy with your design and you want to export ready for print, you can either export the entire document or you can export individual pages. For this example, I want to export them all. So when you're ready to export, simply come up to File and click on Export, or press Command+E on Mac or Control+E on PC. I'll navigate to the project folder I saved previously in the course, click into the Publish folder, select the PDF folder. I'll name the file Design Expo Billboard 1 and 2. Down in the format, I'll choose Adobe PDF for print. I'll click Save and that will pop another menu. So here I'm going to make sure that for the Adobe PDF preset, High Quality Print is selected. For pages, I'll select All. I'll make sure Pages is selected. I'll make sure that View PDF after saving is checked, and then click Export. InDesign will do its thing, and up will pop Acrobat Reader. I'll zoom out a little and click the Pages tab, and here we can see we have a multiple page PDF doc with all the pages. This is now ready to send off to the printer. Perfect. So that's how you can create a billboard design in InDesign and incorporate styles and easily duplicate your artwork. So that completes another document in InDesign. Let's now move on to the next publication design exercise. So see you in the next video.